We have the capacity to realize we are here to live our lives experiencing all the universe has to offer, no matter what the label or the interpretation that we give the experience. We awaken to the knowing that these experiences are for us. They help shape us into the amazing beings that we are. And we get to decide to live life and love like we've never been hurt before. We get to decide that. Here we are. Do you know what we're going to talk about today? All right, stay. It's okay. You're safe. What if you love like you've never been hurt before? You remember your first love, your first crush, right? It was like no hesitation. You jumped right in there, complete immersion. And you know, there was just this sense of love and adoration. And then maybe you got hurt. And then you decided to protect yourself so that you would never feel that again. So I'm going to share some of my experiences with you because, you know, sometimes in our own mind we think no one else could be having these kinds of experiences but us. So I'm going to burst your bubble a little because most of us have had these types of experiences. So I'm going to talk about puppy love, my first love, puppy love. You know, when I first heard that term, puppy love, I was like, why would they call it puppy love? It makes no sense to me. And then I realized it does. Think about the puppy, right? You pet its head. Oh my God, thank you. You just pet my head. I just love you so. Right? Take the puppy for a walk. Oh my God, we're going to go for a walk. This is the best thing ever. I didn't think I could love you more, but I do. You just looked at me. Oh my God, I just love you. You're just amazing, right? So I get it. Puppy love. Mine, his name was Anthony. And I met Anthony in the 4th grade. 4th grade. And he was of German and African-American heritage. So his mom was from Germany, and his dad met her when he was stationed in Germany in the military. He was beautiful, just beautiful. He had these brown, like, curls that were just shiny, and he just had a smile that was out of this world. And every time he looked at me, there would be like this full whoosh, blush, right? Just like from the top of my hair all the way down to my toes. And then, you know, we kind of grew up a little bit and trying to be cool, but we're all geeky and gorky and, you know, the feet and elbows, all of that, right? And then I think I was around 12, and he walked me home from school for the first time, carrying my books, and then he held my hand. Of course, I had to do this a few times, right? And he held my hand. And it was wondrous, and I just knew we would be like this forever. Forever. 12. When we were 13 and 14, my birthday is later in the year, so, you know, he'd already turned 14, I was 13 still. His mom gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl, and they were just beautiful. And Anthony was her closest. There were 3 boys, and she and he had the closest relationship. And I just loved those kids, and any time that I could, I'd babysit, I'd help. You know, I was always volunteering because they were just beautiful. And then Christmas came that year. And the boys and dad went to visit the grandparents, leaving mom and the babies at home. And she was undiagnosed with severe postpartum depression. Anthony came home and found the babies drowned, and she killed herself. 13, innocence ripped away from us. 13. we each dealt with it differently. We walled ourselves up to cope with that pain. And of course, it came out differently. We went through school all the way to high school. We graduated high school together, but after then, our relationship really changed significantly. And I think we were reminders of this painful event for each other. So there was distance, and that makes sense. Now, then, not so much. And the way that he dealt with his pain was he became the wild and promiscuous one. Everybody was talking about Anthony. Oh my God, did you hear about Anthony, right? It was all of that. And I became really introverted, and I didn't date. So imagine when I go to this large university, college, for the first time, I got no skills, right? I never dated. I never learned those types of boundaries because my household was very religious and strict, right? So my second boyfriend in college became my first husband. And I may have mentioned to you previously that he was an alcoholic, but what I may not have mentioned was that he was 7 years older than me. I was 20 years old and a young 20-year-old. And he died of acute alcohol intoxication at the age of 33 years old. 33. And by the end of that disaster, there was no way I was ever going to love that hard again, and I was never getting married. Right, Graham? So I tell you this story. It's just a small snippet of my life. Just in case you're still walking around with that belief system, you know, that BS that says, no one's had the heartbreak I've had in my life. No one's had these catastrophic experiences. And you know, sometimes it feels like we're waiting for a trophy to be given on how bad our life could be, right? And we even use those traumas to justify our choice of being separate, our choice to be alone, our choice to be rigid, our choice to view the world from a sense of sadness, a sense of jadedness. And you know what's underlying all of those choices? Fear. Fear. Fear of making a mistake, fear of getting it wrong, fear of being hurt, fear of the unknown. And I share my wounds and scabs with you to let you know that life has not always been perfect. We all have wounds, but those wounds don't define who we are, nor does it define our capacity for love and joy, unless we let it through our inability to forgive ourselves and others. Those resentments that we hold on to continue to hurt those of us who refuse to forgive. So I want to just tell you that our minds, as most of you know, are these powerful computers, right? It registers every event, everything that comes into us is registered there. And I want you to think of it as, you know, those old vinyl records, you know, where the grooves of the music is embedded into those grooves there. Put the needle down, and you get to play your music, right? Do you remember, like, when you were going out, maybe with the girls or to a club, right? You take out that vinyl, trying not to touch it in the middle, right? And then you, like, place it on the stereo there, take that needle, put it down, right? Getting all dolled up. I'm going out. You know what I need right now? Some music. Music will get me in the mood. Yes. Put that on. At first I was afraid. I was petrified. 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 That's a scratch, right? We get those. It's like, oh, now I'm in a scratch here, and that's that groove, and it's stuck. Well, our brains work quite similarly. right? We may interpret an event as traumatic, and that's that scratch on our brain. And then we revisit it over and over and over again in our minds. There's the groove. There's the groove. Maybe it's something like, he broke up with me. And then you go and travel, or she broke up with me, or they broke up with me. And you're always in that, reliving that moment. Now, each time we see something that may look, smell, seem, possibly could be like that similarity, we drop into that groove. Boom! Right there. And we start having those same old thoughts. We remind ourselves of all those errors, the mistakes, the trauma, the hurt that happened, and we react to the new stimuli as if it was the old incident. So maybe you hear, hey, honey, I just want to tell you that, and boom, there you are in that groove, right? Oh my God, he's probably going to break up. Oh my God, she's probably going to break, you're in that groove. Now, what I'm going to ask you, when you see these things come up in your thoughts, please do not spiritually bypass this moment. And what do I mean by that? Don't just go now to denials and affirmations to get rid of that and change that thought. Denials and affirmations are powerful after you've done the work, my friends. After you sit with those feelings, you're in that present moment awareness of what's coming up for you. You're feeling that. And that's important because those feelings, they are what you are going to use to do your spiritual repair work. Imagine you're painting, right? There's a crack on the wall as you paint, and you just kind of go over it with the roller. That crack's still there, is it not? And you try to maybe push a lot of paint into that crack. Yes, I've done that, right? And then paint over it. And maybe in like a couple of weeks, what do you see? The crack again, right? Our spiritual work is like that. We can't do denials and affirmations. That's like a painting over while the crack's still there. We haven't done the work. The work of maybe expanding that crack a little bit, putting plaster, smoothing it out, waiting for it to dry. Oh, the crack's still there. Doing some more work there. After all of that, then you do your denials and affirmations. Make sense? Thank you. Thank you, James, for being here, because I guess you're the only one. Thank you. So we can be triggered really easy just by simple words. Simply hearing a phrase like, it's your fault. You made me mad. Don't be so naive. And that jars us into being reactionary. And before that person has completed saying the sentence, we are unconsciously, hear that, we are unconsciously rehashing those old scenarios from that groove. Hey, honey, I just want to tell you, oh, they're going to be breaking up with me. This is not going to be a good conversation. And all they want to say is, hey, honey, I want to tell you, don't cook tonight. I'm going to bring home takeout, right? But here's the thing. We can change this groove. Just like repairing vinyl records. Yes, I did YouTube it. How do you repair a scratch on vinyl records? And what's the first thing that they do? They clean it, right? Remember they had like that felt thingamajiggy? That's the correct term for it. The thingamajiggy. And you would try to clean that, right? Because a lot of times it was just dirt, and you put it on again. And you're like, oh, it's still not working. And then the next suggestion would be to apply epoxy or wood glue to smooth out that scratch. So you smooth out that scratch, you wait for it to dry, you kind of peel off the excess glue, you put it on, At first I was afraid, I was petrified. Keep thinking I can live without you by my side, right? So now I'm in the groove. I'm like in a good groove, right? Because I've repaired that scratch, repaired that. And then from the perspective of our minds, it means that we can do the same thing. The cleaning piece is releasing the blame and forgiving ourselves. Releasing the blame and forgiving ourselves. And then like the glue and the epoxy is going to be creating new neural pathways which change our beliefs and our behaviors. Now, to create new neural pathways, it's identifying those erroneous thoughts, reframing our perceptions of an event. So let's take my example of my first husband, right? After the relationship with him, I believed that I was unlovable, undeserving of kindness and respect. I blamed him for his treatment of me. And then I came to view intimate relationships as, I'm not going there. They're not worthwhile. Why do I do that horror show again? I saw straight men as foes and to be avoided. And each interaction thereafter with men was colored by that groove. Do you hear me? And I remember still wanting to be around masculine energy, and I would lived in New York City, and I tell you, I had so many gay men friends. It was fabulous. So I got my fill of the masculine energy there. But I was lonely. I was still lonely and missing the intimacy that we as human beings are designed for, designed to nurture and desire. For my life to become happier and more fulfilling, it required that I identified the erroneous thought, which for me was, straight men are bad and unable to be kind. Straight men are bad and unable to be kind. And then I realized I needed to create a new neural pathway by reframing the trauma. My friends, this doesn't mean that trauma did not happen. Doesn't mean that. But it means that we have the opportunity to question how we came to believe we are that trauma. Do you hear that? And I looked at, what if I released the blame and hurt by coming to understand that my first husband was unable to be anything other than he was? Anything other than he was. And he was damaged from his family of origin, and also he was born and raised in Kenya. We were culturally not in resonance with each other. Well, then, I can take myself off the hook, can't I? I can forgive him and myself. I no longer need to hold on to those erroneous beliefs. And now I create new thoughts such as, it was simply a life experience that got me on the path to my soul's journey. And as I continue to do my work, I start to discover I am more present, right? Because I'm not like in that groove back then. I'm aware of the gifts of this moment. And after a while, these neural pathways are created, and I'm no longer in a state of reaction from past trauma. And I am in awe of what's available to me now. I start meeting new friends, be curious about new adventures. I blossom. And just as that vinyl was repaired, I am as well. I'm no longer stuck replaying my trauma. I'm now able to hear the beautiful song of the divine. The beautiful song of the divine. And as we do our own repair, reframing, creating new neural pathways, we become open to the wonder that is life. We have doors opening to us that we never knew existed. Well, how could we? We couldn't even see them before. In the past, we were so invested in the mantra, somebody done somebody wrong. You know that song? That it was hard for us to see the light, to see the possibility, to see the doors and God. And as our consciousness shifts, we become aware of powerful tools available to us to help us to continue to evolve, to grow, to awaken. And one of those tools we can utilize is the spiritual practice of forgiveness. I know many of you have probably heard of the Ho'oponopono, right, which is a spiritual practice that resonates within your psyche, within your soul, within your body, within your mind, heart, your environment, and all the people around you. The Ho'oponopono is an indigenous practice from the land of Hawaii. It's a practice of forgiveness for oneself and for others. The translation of the word Ho'oponopono means to cause things to move back into balance or to make things right. And they believe in chanting this prayer over and over is a powerful way to cleanse the body of guilt, shame, blame, cleanse your mind of those haunting memories or feelings of trauma that keep your mind fixated on negative thoughts. This practice is really simple. Four steps that we can all use. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, and I love you. Sounds like cake, right? That's nothing. But it's the intention that we set when we do this chant. And we're going to be doing that today in our meditation practice. So the first step, I'm sorry, this is about repentance, in honoring that there is only oneness. And it doesn't matter whose fault it is in that situation. It doesn't matter. What you're looking at here is the remorse of this negative event and how it's impacting you. You can apologize for yourself or even humanity, whatever feels right. And all that is needed to be said is, I'm sorry. Step 2 is where we ask for forgiveness. It's a deeper level of step 1, but here you're asking for forgiveness, maybe from your inner self, about your spiritual beliefs, about what you know and believe of as God. And you simply imbue that with unconditional love as you say, please forgive me. Step 3 is about gratitude, the awakening, the gratitude for what is, for the juiciness that is life, for all the experiences that the universe brings to you that shape you. And we say thank you. And then lastly, we affirm that love is all that matters. All that matters. And we hold the knowing and intention of unconditional love, projecting it inwards and outwards as we say the words, I love you. You see, once we are able to create a sense of balance and making things right in our mind, our body, our heart, our soul, we now have the ability to create the lives we truly deserve. We have the choice to drop those imaginary walls that we erected to protect ourselves, which really kept us separated from each other. We have the capacity to realize we are here to live our lives experiencing all the universe has to offer, no matter what the label or the interpretation that we give the experience. We awaken to the knowing that these experiences are for us. They help shape us into the amazing beings that we are. And we get to decide to live life and love like we've never been hurt before. We get to decide that. Imagine each person you meet knows that you are beloved, that they are here to love you, to love us, that they know that you are deserving of love simply because you are of God. And your existence is simply to be love in skin. And if you take on this truth, that you are simply to be love in skin, then you are free to be your true essence at all times. Free to love unabashedly, right? So if you want to wag your tail, you can wag your tail, right? If you want to roll over and scratch your back, you roll over and scratch your back. You be in that in totality, your whole being, nothing reserved. So imagine if this community, Unity Church of the Hills, is filled with beings who are simply here to be love in skin. Right? That's pretty powerful. So this week, your homework, I always give you something to do, right? Your homework this week is to do the chant, the Ho'oponopono. I want you to commit to doing it once a day. I don't care when you do it. I don't care how long you do it. Just once a day for a week. And at that end of the week, I want you to journal what's changed, what was healed. And if you're not a journaler, like me, I don't really like journaling, then grab your person and tell them what changed and what was healed.